Hello guys, welcome to screencast on acquiring movement skills. Now this topic that we are looking at here, feedback, I would say is going to be the most important topic in acquiring movement skills because this is the one that is most likely to be your 10-mark question. If you can look up at the top here, you've got evaluate critically different types of feedback, detect and correct errors. The fact it's got evaluate critically on it, and it's one of 4 topics in the whole of the AS specification that hasn't come up. It's really vital that you prepare accordingly for this. Now there is quite a bit of information. There's 8 different types of feedback. You need to make sure that you have a keyword to be able to explain each one. And secondly, you need to be able to try and give advantages and disadvantages. We'll work on developing and embedding them in lessons, but you really need to make an effort on your Cornell notes for this session. So I'll just go through this to get on. If you can get yourself ready. So, first thing then, key functions of feedback. If we go back to the big picture, you need to provide functions of them. This would be like an introductory sentence when you start it, and then those functions can be used for different kind of evaluations as we go through. So, functions of feedback then. Increase confidence, increase motivation, strengthen stimulus response bonds, and detect and correct errors. So that makes sense. If somebody tells you you're doing well, that can increase your confidence. If somebody tells you to work harder, that can increase your motivation. Any kind of feedback, as we looked at positive reinforcement, can strengthen the stimulus response bond towards a desired response. And finally, it allows you to detect and correct errors when you're performing. So, types of feedback then, this is the important stuff. What you'll have is a green kind of colour-coded word that is absolutely vital in your explanation of the 8 types of feedback. Pretty much the prefix for all of the types of feedback will be information, because all feedback is information given to detect and correct errors. So if we start off then, positive feedback is when you're praised following correct movement. Okay, so the key word is praise. Now, the key thing on this, it's only really effective if it's specific to a part of skill. For example, if you praise someone for using the side of their foot when passing, rather than just saying well done. Okay, so that is a difference between a good positive feedback and bad positive feedback. Furthermore, as we looked at those general kind of functions of feedback, it helps strengthen the stimulus response bond. Okay. Finally, it's very effective for cognitive performers due to the confidence it can raise. And finally, the disadvantage is looking at this concept of the fact that if you keep praising people, if you keep giving positive reinforcement, it can become overused and therefore it loses its effect. The opposite to positive feedback, they work in 2s. Negative feedback, again, prefix, information given when movement is incorrect. Okay, now this can be either intrinsic, so you get the feedback from within, or extrinsic from a coach. It's most effective for autonomous performers, okay, because it allows them to perfect performance. Okay, it's also most effective if it's constructive and it's given in a way where people know the next steps to improve. Disadvantage, if it's overused with cognitive performers, this can be damaging to confidence, okay, especially if it's not structured constructively. Moving on. Concurrent feedback then. So concurrent feedback is basically refers to information that you get during a movement. Okay, so it can be intrinsic again or extrinsic. And the key thing on this is, in order for you to be able to receive information during a movement, it has to be on a continuous or a slow, jerky skill. As you'll kind of remember from closed loop control, those skills where you can make adjustments, that's perfect for concurrent feedback. So you can either make those adjustments yourself or coach could tell you. So you're looking at things like beam walking as an example. Disadvantage, it's difficult to get feedback during movement for things, ballistic skills, fast skills, and also for cognitive performance because they're not really fluent enough to be able to make changes during a movement. Terminal feedback then, if you think of terminal, if an illness is terminal, it means you're at the end of your life. Information received at the end of a movement. Okay, so the advantage of immediate terminal feedback is that if it's immediate and you get it straight after the performance, it's fresh in your mind. If the gap's too long, it can lead to people forgetting and not having any real relevance to what you've done. Okay, another advantage is it's good for ballistic skills, which are fast, dynamic, finish quickly, so you can get the feedback after it. Okay. Okay, so moving on to your next pair of feedbacks, we've got intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic feedback then is sensory information, okay, such as kinesthesis, which we've talked about a lot of this year. Now, this kind of ability to be able to use sensory feedback and kinesthesis is pretty much exclusive and only really effective for autonomous performers, because they've got the ability to be able to kind of match those kind of perceptual and memory traces and make adjustments. Disadvantage for cognitive and associative learners who don't really, particularly cognitive performers, it's not great for them because they don't have a motor program or memory trace stored in the long-term memory in order to compare it with. So when they're doing things, they can't make the adjustments on the intrinsic feedback. They might know they're doing it wrong, but because they can't compare to the perfect model or motor program, it's a disadvantage to them. So extrinsic then, complete opposite. This is where you get information from external sources such as a coach. Okay, so a coach telling you what to do, what you've done right, what you've done wrong. This is really effective for cognitive performers, okay, because they might not know what a skill feels like when it's successful. So it's important that they have a coach to tell them what it is. The disadvantage is that if if a cognitive performer overuses extrinsic feedback, it can hinder the development of intrinsic feedback and kinesthesis, which is what you need to become an elite autonomous performer. So as you can see, so far we've kind of used this cognitive autonomous as kind of a key kind of evaluator. Now you need to make sure that kind of if you're struggling, you try and link it to kind of the phases of learning. That is always something that you can link it to. Final two then, knowledge of results. Okay, this is information based on the outcome of performance, so it's essential for the cognitive phase of learning, because knowledge of results basically means that the performer can actually see that they've scored or they've missed. Okay, so it's an outcome. So for example, a young performer kicks a ball at a goal, it goes in. Okay, it's essential in the cognitive phase, okay, because they have no other way of knowing they're successful. Okay, then the other advantage of it is it can lead to the development of knowledge of performance, which is that kind of knowledge of the technical quality of a skill. So finally then, knowledge of performance, this is information on the technical quality of a skill. It's mainly used by autonomous performers because they have this concept of kinesthesis, they have this concept of sensory information that they can use to kind of understand when they're successful or not. Okay, so they are your 8 types of feedback. What do I need from you? I understand it's quite a lot of information, but it's such an important topic, you must make sure you make detailed notes on this. We go back to kind of this bit here. I need you to be able to describe the types of feedback and have a good go at critically evaluating the different types of feedback. Tomorrow's lesson will be looking at kind of mixing and matching evaluations, and also we'll be looking at where in the paragraph or sentence you put a sporting example so that you don't repeat yourself too much. Okay, thank you very much.